Pembangunan ketahanan pangan tak lagi menjadi isu baru di negara maju maupun berkembang. Hingga kini, berbagai negara terus berupaya mencari jalan keluar untuk memperkuat ketahanan pangan. Perubahan iklim, pertumbuhan penduduk yang terlalu cepat, dan lahan pertanian yang terus berkurang menambah kekhawatiran terhadap pemerataan pangan global, khususnya di kawasan Asia Pasifik. Sebagai kawasan yang memiliki penduduk terpadat di dunia, jumlah populasi dan lahan pangan di Asia Pasifik tidak seimbang. Asia Pasifik memenuhi 50% jumlah populasi dunia, tetapi hanya memiliki 20% lahan untuk memproduksi pangan. Hal tersebut menjadi salah satu permasalahan yang dibahas dalam Eat Asia Pacific Food Forum. Ini merupakan forum pangan pertama di Asia Pasifik yang mempertemukan seluruh stakeholder, mulai dari pemerintah, peneliti, serta industri. 700 peserta dari berbagai negara di Asia Pasifik hadir membahas sistem pangan yang menyasar masalah kecukupan, ketersediaan, dan keterjangkauan nutrisi masyarakat dunia. Dalam kesempatan ini, pemerintah Indonesia mendorong para pemangku kepentingan untuk selalu mengantisipasi segala perubahan dalam sektor ketahanan pangan dan tentunya status perbaikan gizi. Pertumbuhan penduduk yang kian meningkat membuat ketersediaan lahan pertanian menyusut lantaran diubah menjadi perumahan atau area industri. Oleh sebab itu, diperlukan langkah promotif dan preventif dari berbagai pihak untuk menjaga ketahanan pangan yang sehat dan berkelanjutan. Yoga Gotama, CNN Indonesia.
Ya, masalah yang akan dihadapi oleh dunia ya ke depan adalah bagaimana menyediakan pangan untuk populasi di dunia yang semakin lama semakin bertambah, ya, makanan yang sehat, bergizi tapi juga bisa dijangkau. Nah, FAO mengatakan saat ini saja sekitar 800 juta orang di dunia itu masih mengalami kekurangan gizi. Dan kalau kita lihat juga cara kita memproduksi makanan, ya, industri pangan kita saat ini juga ternyata menimbulkan begitu banyak, ya, makanan yang terbuang dan juga tidak ramah lingkungan, baik dari produksinya, distribusinya hingga sampai ke konsumsinya. Nah, pertanyaannya ke depan bagaimana menciptakan pangan yang tersedia, yang sehat, yang terjangkau tapi juga tidak merusak lingkungan. Kita kali ini akan berbicara dengan founder dan juga presiden director dari EAT Foundation, yaitu Dr. Gunhild Stordalen, ya, yang saat ini sedang berada di Jakarta untuk menghadiri EAT Asia Pacific Forum. Hi, good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Gunhild, is it?
Yes.
I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Jakarta. And EAT Foundation itself. Tell me a little bit about it, because this is a foundation that is only, less than 4 years old now, and yet it's really making big waves in the world. And you are here in Indonesia with the EAT Foundation Forum. So just a little bit about the history. How did you get into it, especially with your background as a scientist?
Yeah, well, just to put it very simple, or as simple as possible, EAT works to help transform the global food system to be able to feed close to 10 billion people in a sustainable way and providing healthy, nutritious food for all. And we work then across science, business, politics, and civil society to help do that. But it started actually from a private sector perspective, because although I'm a medical doctor by education and an environmentalist by heart, I was lucky to get involved in the hospitality industry by marrying a hotel owner. And he invited me to sit on the board of the biggest hotel company Scandinavia, Nordic Choice Hotels. And as a board member with with nothing or no experience in business whatsoever, my best contribution I thought was to look into how can we help improve the sustainability of the hotel operation. And
which involve a lot of food, obviously. But what did you actually see wrong at that time?
No, that's the thing. I mean, since I was a little girl, I've been very passionate about animal rights and animal welfare. Grew up in the rural Norwegian countryside and learned to love nature, and was very passionate about environmental issues. Acid rain and a hole in the ozone layer at that time, but when climate change became the biggest threat to humanity, that was one of the things I was most passionate about. So when I came into the board at Nordic Choice and started to look into how can we do better as a hotel company, and started reading about where is the environmental footprint of the hospitality industry, and then I realized that food was such an important part of the challenge, because as much as 70% of an average hotel's environmental footprint is due to food and beverage.
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
from a medical background, I knew it was a health challenge with what we served our guests and employees, but I didn't know it was such a big climate problem. Up to 30% of the global greenhouse gas emissions is caused by the food system, and also it's a huge driver of deforestation, biodiversity loss, depletion of marine ecosystems, etc. And then with a passion for animals and obviously wanting to serve something with good animal welfare and also workers' rights, smallholder farmers, fair trade, etc. I wanted to find something that was, could we do something in the hotels that was good for all of these issues? And I said, a little bit naive, but let's set up some internal guidelines for what we can serve in these 180 hotels in Scandinavia. And I thought that was going to be an easy exercise, but it turned out not to be. Because when I started reading, there was reports on nutrition and health, it was reports on climate smart agriculture, it was reports on animal welfare and food and fair trades and etc., but nothing that looked into all of these challenges at the same time. So that was where I came into it and really discovered this as a knowledge gap.
Okay, so you started in your own environment, but what sort of guidelines did you actually, propose? And then how did you find, ways in which to fix it, which in the end, sort of grow into something much bigger than just your, hotel?
Yeah, well, but that was the thing. It wasn't possible at the time to set up dietary guidelines for the food and beverage operation that was both healthy and sustainable, because the knowledge wasn't put together. So, and obviously coming from as a medical doctor and also being trained as a scientist, I wanted to find the rigorous, robust science and realize that it's a need to find integrated knowledge on what will benefit both people and planet. But also what I learned from my being a PhD student is that no one really reads scientific journals. Who is reading Nature or Science? So it's very important for the knowledge to have an impact, to actually provide the decision makers like private sector and policy makers with the best available science for them to act on it. So that became the model for EAT, to bring together knowledge about all the different aspects of the food related challenges, and then work across academia or towards the policymakers, business leaders, and obviously civil society playing a hugely important role. So that became the model. And just if we I mean, if you look into the food challenges on a global level, it's one of the really, really big challenges we are facing as humanity. If we look at the health side, almost half of the world's population can be classified as malnourished if you take into account the people getting too little to eat, too much, or the wrong type of food. Exactly. And then also diet now being the most important risk factor for disease and being linked to 1 of 5 deaths annually at a global basis. And then also if you look into the environmental side of food, having food as a single biggest contributor to climate change and being such a huge environmental or causing environmental problems, and then at the same time, although 815 million people are still going hungry, we are throwing away or wasting a third of everything is produced, amount of food. So we have, I mean, the short, or to sum up, the global food system is broken, and we need to fix it, and no single stakeholder can do that alone.
No, absolutely not, and it's such an ambitious project, especially the way that, you know, especially with globalization, the way the world has been sort of broken up into, you have the economic aspect, and then you have the, you know, the business, and then you have the political, and then you have the science and the environmental, and it's as if nobody is really talking to each other. And like you mentioned, you know, one of the largest contributors to actually the carbon, you know, the greenhouse gas is actually the cattle industry, for example, you know. And also there's mention about the food waste, but on the other hand, the way that we distribute food across the world. I mean, at some part of the world, you have people that have way too much to eat, like for example in the United States. And in other parts, they have, you know, sort of barely enough. But then you also have the problems of obesity, which is like a new sort of a new problem, as well as the malnutrition. Now, how, you know, with this EAT, it sounds like a very ambitious project. I mean, how have you managed to get people to sit together, you know, the scientists, the economists, the environmentalists, and actually talking about something that we all need as humans, which is basically to eat good, healthy, affordable, and, you know, nutritious, sustainable, without impacting too much on our planet.
Exactly, and but that's the thing. I mean, having a global food system, in principle, delivering enough calories to feed the world, more than feeding the current population, but being so, I mean, huge inequalities and being unequally distributed, right? But and EAT is very ambitious in its scope and the vision. But this is about collaboration and bringing people together to work together.
And has it been easy or has it been challenging?
Well, I mean, working together, partnerships are always, I mean, it's always challenging, but it's worth it. And it creates a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. And from EAT being basically an idea on a paper 4 years ago, the first in 2014, we brought together almost 400 people from 28 countries, and Bill Clinton came and gave the opening speech. He was in an interesting case because he, being very focused on, as an American president, on global issues and climate change, but then also having a personal health story after getting heart problems. He changed his diet towards a plant-based diet and stopped a lot of weight, became much healthier. So he just
had his own personal story.
He had his personal story and the global perspective. So, but then from starting that and having the first forum 4 years ago, and now being here, I mean, it has been such a journey, and it's almost wherever we go. People want to collaborate because there's increasingly clear that we cannot deal with these different issues in silos. We have to come together, and it's not always easy, but we have to find integrated solutions. Sometimes, I mean, there are trade-offs, but we will have to find the best compromise wherever possible, and that is making people wanting to be part of this.
the stuff that's out there with all the junk food and then all the too much sugar, too much. I mean, the stuff that are in the supermarkets or the people are selling to us, it's been proven that it's actually not healthy.
Yeah.
So what really is healthy? But what do you see as the biggest problem? And because, like I said, the globalization, and also the need to provide affordable food, cheap food, particularly for populations in the developing countries, for example. What do you see as extremely wrong with our global food system that allows, for example, and also there's a pressure of the environmental need to do things, environmentally friendly, like, for example, the biofuel and then the growing of food for fuel. But at the same time, there is this increasing awareness that, perhaps the kind of healthy food that we're eating is not something that we are actually providing, growing, and giving to the people at the moment.
No, well, I mean, you are spot on because this is a part of the system failure, and we haven't looked into food as the food system. We have been looking into, dealing with undernutrition and hunger, and then some like Jamie Oliver coming in from dealing with the obesity issue. Other people have been looking into the environmental part, but we haven't really looked into how can we find good solutions for all of this. And I mean, one of the system errors or where the system is failing is that most or basically all over the world, governments haven't linked production policies to consumption policies. So take US, which exported fast food and supersized to the world,
and GMO products and
exactly. But they on one hand they are subsidizing or they're providing like $20 billion a year in agricultural subsidies that goes into basically wheat, maize, or corn, soy, and the ingredients in junk food and animal feed. And then on the other hand, they have an obesity crisis and a public health crisis with diet-related diseases that is enormous. 60% of the American population above 2 years of age are now either overweight or obese, and the costs are. There was a Milken Institute report last year estimating the total cost of obesity in the US to be $1.4 trillion a year.
So it's
just, these numbers are, even though the president might not believe in climate change, these numbers can no longer be ignored. But the government has yet to link these issues across ministries, right? So the agricultural subsidies that are literally fueling a public health crisis and an environmental crisis, which the ministries of health or the ministries of environment are dealing with on the other side of the corridors, because the budgets are not necessarily seen, or they are not seen as whole. So the true cost of food, you mentioned cheap food. Cheap calories, that is the success of the modern food system. We are producing a lot of it, but it's not quality.
Now the science is out that actually, things like sugar is actually, bad for us, and and that kind of, the idea of health keeps, the post keeps, shifting all the time. Let's go back to what it is that your foundation is trying to do. How do you prioritize? Because there's so many elements of this issue, and it involves basically us, the whole global community, and the number of which keeps going up. By 2050, maybe we'll have 9 or 10 billion, and obviously everybody, should be fed healthy food. What are you focusing on, and what would be sort of the low-hanging fruits that you can actually get everybody on the same table?
Yeah, well, basically the EAT Foundation is trying in partnership to do two things, and that first is to bring together the best available science across the different disciplines and find what is healthy, sustainable diets from obviously sustainable production systems, and set some science-based targets. And then on the other hand, it's to bring and translate new and existing knowledge into to action, which means evidence-based policies and business solutions, and also, I mean, behavioral change at a population level. So to start on what we are doing to bring together the knowledge, together with the medical journal, the Lancet, we set up 1.5 years ago now a commission of the world's 20 leading, or some of the world's 20 leading experts in nutrition, sustainability, food policies, etc., to look into what's out there, and to put together the first comprehensive scientific assessment on what constitutes healthy diets from sustainable food systems, and try to set some initial science-based targets for what will a healthy food system, sustainable food system look like by 2030, because we don't know right now. We have an idea, but we have no.
So that's still a work in progress. But would you give us, maybe share with us sort of your knowledge as as somebody with a scientific a background. So what does actually now? What does the science say? Constitute a healthy human diet that we should all sort of use as our guidelines, because obviously the stuff that's out there with all the junk food and then all the too much sugar, too much, I mean the stuff that are in the supermarkets or the people are selling to us, it's been proven that it's actually not healthy. So what really is healthy?
So that's, I mean, to a simple saying that which the New York Times journalist Michael Pollan came up with, is eat real food, not too much, and mostly plants. That turns out to be backed by the best available science. We know that shifting to more plant-based diets with less processed
pesticides.
Absolutely, and less added sugar, salt, fat, and with more plant-based, lower down in the value chain, and then reducing food wastes or food waste and losses, and also increasing production efficiency, but the more real food and more plant-based diets are kind of both better for the environment and better for human health in most cases, and obviously you don't need to do intensive livestock production or factory farming if you are reducing the amount of meat and dairy we are eating at a global level. But that is it comes with a lot of regional nuances and variation.
Yes, obviously,
because
very different.
Exactly, because working EAT is a global initiative or foundation, and in some part of the world for nutrition or from a nutrition aspect, the livestock might be the only source of protein available, and people actually need to consume more dairy or even some more meat. But that means that in the high meat consumption countries like in North America and Northern Europe in particular, where we now are eating twice as much as recommended from a health perspective, we have to dramatically reduce the amount of meat, in particular beef, and So that is, but that it's not enough that this is healthy. It also have to be environmental sustainable, and also a part of the food system challenge is smallholder farmers. 500 of the world's poorest and most vulnerable smallholder farmers, they are working and are struggling with with their livelihood. So the food system needs to be transformed in a way that actually provide people with a decent income and allow prosperity in all the different values. And also with the Asian food is all over the world already, and people are craving Asian flavors and cuisine. So I think there's a very exciting opportunity as well to really export some of the solutions.
Countries like Indonesia and maybe similar sort of a growing middle class but still developing countries is always sort of the, on the one hand, there is this increasing sort of consumer awareness that we should be eating healthier food. On the other hand, there is the supply of it. For example, the idea of food should be organic and so on and so forth. But it comes at a cost. On the other hand, the farmers, they are being increasingly sort of pushed out because of the global production on agricultural products. So your conversations with leaders and politicians and like for example the forum here in Jakarta, how do you feel? Is there an understanding that there is this overlapping many sort of multifaceted problems that need to be addressed? And
yeah, well, I think this is a concrete example and proof of the understanding. And also, we ended up doing the first Asia Pacific Food Forum because of Indonesia, and from it was almost an idea on paper, and we have an advisory board of some of the leading experts from different countries and disciplines and also sectors, and Her Excellency Minister of Health, Ibu Nila Muelak, she has been one of the board members since the very beginning, and she was coming into this, and since day one really she has been stressing that we are dealing with global issues, but we have to find local solutions and take this down at a regional level. And then she immediately said, let's do the first Eat Asia Pacific Food Forum in Jakarta. So here we are 3 years later, and it has been fantastic to see how the Indonesian government has been stepping up to address these interconnected issues around food, health, sustainability, economy. Farmers, smallholders, livelihoods, bring all these things together and have these multi-stakeholder dialogues. And the forums are not, it's not only a plenary, it's not a conference where you come, sit down, take a seat, enjoy the presentations. This is actually a workshop where you come and contribute with your knowledge, your insights, and how can we find win-win solutions, or at least the best possible solutions that takes care of all these different issues. So it has been fantastic to see from, the Vice President coming and holding a fantastic opening speech, and Indonesia's leadership on stunting and the nutrition.
We're still unfortunately, stunting is one of our biggest problems.
It is absolutely, and remain a key challenge in the region, right? Not only in Indonesia, but also now a growing awareness that overnutrition is a growing problem, and also, we are talking about the double burden where we're now under nutrition and obesity, diet-related diseases are actually existing in the same countries and in the same region, and the rapid increase in obesity is a huge concern, and obviously being stunted as in childhood increases the likelihood for diet-related diseases in later in life. So I think this awareness and the leadership that is that the Indonesian government and the Ministry of Health with Ibanila more like in front. I mean, that has been amazing to see, and also the excitement. I mean, it was almost 800 delegates from the various, I mean, from all over the world, with 30 countries were represented.
Well, the thing about Indonesia is we're very, we've committed ourselves to, SDGs and the Paris Agreement. One of the problems that we're having, because of the huge number of our population, we're in over 260 million people and increasingly growing, and also we're very, economically, socially, there's a huge gap, and there are areas in Indonesia where it's fertile and other areas are not fertile, but at the same time there's also different policies that the governments are trying to implement, where there's the need to make sure that the people are becoming more sort of economically advanced, but at the same time there's a need to take care of our environment and then give our people good food. Now, during your stay, very short stay here, but I'm sure very, lots of things that for you to bring home, so to speak, because this is your first time here in this part of the world. What are your main takeaways that you can actually put as part of the EAT, solutions to some of these problems, particularly those faced by the developing world?
Well, I think, the developing world has a huge opportunity. I mean, the challenges are huge, but opportunities are even bigger. And I mean, finding solutions and link policies, production policies, and consumption policies, dietary guidelines for the population, and find business solutions that are delivering on all these different aspects. That is a huge opportunity for Indonesia and for the region, and also, I mean, it's a path to economic prosperity, because investing in good health and a healthy environment will be key for further success of societies, and also with the Asian food is all over the world already, and people are craving Asian flavors and cuisine. So I think is a very exciting opportunity as well to really export some of the solutions. I mean, not only for what is happening in the region to get that right on food, but also be part of the solution to the rest of the world on what is healthy, sustainable food and food solutions going to look like.
I'm glad you mentioned about Asian cuisines, because especially in Indonesia and also in other Southeast Asian countries, we have so many different types of food with different local produce and local flavors and so on and so forth, which, if you look at it, is actually very healthy, very balanced, very varied. For example, we have lots of different types of fruits and so on and so forth. But again, if we go back to this idea of the global food system, some of that is actually being sort of homogenized into this global food industry, so everybody eats the same type of apple, same type of banana, same type of, at the expense of some of these sort of local resources that are actually a lot healthier.
That is, I mean, the lack of diversity in food and crops. That is also one of the key challenges in this. I mean, it's 75% of the world's food supply comes from 12 plants or 12 crops and 5 animal species, roughly the number. So it's really, I mean, towards like the huge monocrops, and you lose the diversity, you lose all these.
It's such a shame, because, for example, some of these are much more nutritious. You have like maybe 10 different types of red rice, brown rice, black rice, and now everybody's sort of down into just eating one type of rice, for example, instead of.
That is the thing, and
it's quite sad, actually.
It's very, I mean, it's sad, and it's also a huge threat. I'm a champion for something called the Food Forever campaign, which is part of the crop trust work to really protect crop diversity and have the bring much more focus to the importance of crop diversity, and this is also a key to food security, because with now climate change already happening and being, I mean, more extreme weather and more crops being threatened, and having then a much broader or a much bigger variety of crops and bring the diversity into food
and into the soil. I mean,
into the soil,
absolutely much healthier for the environment.
Exactly, and also make us more resilient to climate change and other extreme. Yeah.
Do you see that as being an influential part of your movement to raise awareness, particularly for the young millennials? You know, they're inheriting this planet that is literally, you know, being threatened by all sorts of climate change issues. But then how do you, I mean, with your access to businesses, do you talk to people like in, you know, these GMO businesses like the Monsanto? I mean, because this is also part of the homogenization of, you know, the food industry and the kind of things that we eat, and that's also one of the problems, right? When you introduce something like a GMO, that basically gets rid of the...
Yeah, and then, I mean, GMO is nuanced, because it's, I mean, in one way it might...
You need...
we are going to feed another 2 billion people by 2050, and we will have to increase production efficiency, but we have to do things with big precautions that are currently not always the fact. We need a science-based agenda, and we need to know what we are doing. So this is also some of the things we are working with in dialogues with Big Food, and also bringing the innovators on board. I mean, there are so many things happening now with really disruptive business solutions, and I mean, one of the Richard Branson just recently wrote in a blog that his estimates for the future of food is that by 2050 we will no longer need conventionally produced meat, but
you can just produce it in the laboratory with
exactly, or have plant-based alternatives, and that might be, whether that might be happening or not, but at least it's a huge trend now towards finding alternatives that is both healthier and more sustainable, and bring the different considerations from the lack of diversity to the health aspect, to the environmental aspects, and obviously the social dimension here with the livelihood, and also, I mean, diversity comes also for how can smallholders actually make an income and go from subsistence to farming business, or to a decent income and a decent business models.
You know, more value added to whatever it is that they produce. I'm also curious, because a lot of this, you know, when it comes to food, is very much a consumer driven, and if more and more of us, you know, as consumers, are aware of the importance of eating healthy, and first of all, you know, food has to be affordable. It has to be accessible. It has to be, you know, because anything that costs a lot, then it's no point. But, you know, there's this. Do you see that as being an influential part of your movement to raise awareness, particularly for the young millennials? You know, they're inheriting this planet that is literally, you know, being threatened by all sorts of climate change issues that maybe their parents or the decision makers didn't feel. I mean, they're brought up in the consumer society and consumer culture. Now it's, you know, Do you see sort of involving them?
But you have, I mean, this is one of the really important points, because without a consumers on board, we will never ever be able to change and transform the food system. But we as consumers are very confused at the moment. What is a healthy diet, and if it should be also sustainable and good for the workers and the animals? And this is very complicated. We need better and more consistent information, and that is why Eat Foundation is bringing together the different stakeholders to also help the communication to be more consistent and have. I mean, we are talking about complex challenges, but the messages to us as consumers need to be simple. When I'm in the grocery store, can't deal with all the complicated science and different consideration. I need to have some simple information, and obviously food have to be affordable, available, and attractive.
I mean, here, like I said, in Indonesia, with the tropics, I mean, everything, you plant something, it just grows. You don't need to even fertilize or anything. But the fact is that the price of an apple that is grown in central Java is actually more expensive than the stuff that, Fuji apples thrown in from China, for example, and it's cheaper to buy a Washington Red in the supermarket. As a matter of fact, the traditional fruit sellers are now selling stuff like grapes and so on and so forth that are not grown locally. Do you see where I'm heading? We're eating our bananas that are imported from South America, the Chiquita bananas. But if you want to, and yet Indonesia is home to like maybe 50 different types of bananas that we don't really see anymore. I mean, is this something that Eat, with all its ambitious goal? Because that should be where food.
So to answer that question, because I mean, partly we need a better, more consistent, easily accessible information for consumers. I mean, that is guidelines, but it's also, I mean, to communicate this in a much better way from, I mean, the scientific community, the medical community. We have a job to do to get the communication across. But then, I mean, it's the system failure here. Because, as you say, I mean, the right choices are not necessarily the cheapest or the most easy available. And for healthy and sustainable food to be affordable and available and attractive for all, then we need exactly the food industry to come up with solutions. We need policy makers to put enabling policies in place, and I mean, we need to incentivize the right products and sustainable produced food, and put taxes on unhealthy and sustainable products. And I mean, this hotel, the general manager and his food and beverage team have been doing amazing work to really put the better choices into delicious wrapping.
And can you now account for, where the food comes from in the menu, whether it's locally produced?
Exactly. We had, I mean, our event director, she was out visiting, farms and worked with the chefs.
Okay, 5 years from now, where do you see Eat? And what are the main sort of hurdle for you to really overcome in order to, fulfill all these very ambitious targets?
No, I mean, the vision of Eat is to have the right healthy, sustainable food available, affordable, and attractive for all, right? And to get there, I mean, we need to have some permanent knowledge generator type of mechanism that makes sure that we are bringing together knowledge and really drive the knowledge or expand the knowledge platform. So that is something we are working on to set up a mechanism to do that. And then also having this being part of the agendas at all different levels, from the UN that is now really seeing that this is coming, and also working at different levels. From cities are a huge mechanism for change and a vehicle to rapid transformation. So together with urban networks like C40, we are already working on this, but taking this in a much broader scale, and obviously also doing more regional forums.
Has it been easy for you to sort of raise the awareness, and because it involves a lot of basically I'm sure in a lot of talking to people or getting government's attention? Has it been?
Well, it has been the most exciting journey. I think all of us that work in it now have had.
How has it grown? How many of you are there now in the foundation?
Now we are.
How fast have you grown?
No, that is. We are now just around 30 employees, but so. But we started out basically volunteering, me and a few colleagues. But that is not the most important. The most important here is the collaboration.
The impact,
exactly, and working with, scaling up nutrition, the Sun movement. Gerda Warburg, who leads the secretariat. This is a UN mechanism to get focus on it. Basically, from the past, it was undernutrition and hunger, basically, and 60 member countries are part of this network. But now, that is something which is changing, and Sun movement is now increasingly looking into. We need to bring attention to the double burden here. And also bring in environmental sustainability, and she has been part of the forum and one of the speakers here. And then one interesting thing to mention is an example why this the success have to come from breaking down the silos.
Which is, I'm sure, not easy.
No, it's not easy. Obviously, there are exactly, but still, it's very rewarding when you make progress, and it's worth it. But just to take the hunger situation, that is an example why the siloed approaches we've had in the past is not going to be successful, because the UN report that was released last month. Status of food security and nutrition in the world show that for the first time in more than a decade, world hunger is now on the rise again, and mainly because of climate change and conflict.
Yes, exactly.
And then when we know that the food system is the single biggest contributor of greenhouse gas emissions, this will just further threaten food security with population growth and changing diets, with business as usual. But I think that understanding and why this journey is exciting for EAT and also for all of our partners and collaborators, because that we see it's possible to change if we bring people together. And it's one thing that there are so many things to bring home from Jakarta and this forum, but one thing that I would like to leave behind is the word, one Norwegian word, which I think it's worth spreading actually, and it's called dugnad. It means a voluntarily collaboration where everyone comes together and contribute with whatever they can, but they want to be part of the solution. And that is a word that is not existing in English or other language maybe, but I don't, unfortunately don't speak. So I think that is a way to think of why or how can we move forward. It have to be collaboration. It have to it have to be co-creation of solutions and finding the best possible compromise.
That's great. To be part of the solution.
Yeah.
Although a lot of the problems that we see now is actually because we were solving other problems in the past. So
Exactly.
the solution is something that is constantly changing, but just out of personal interest in your own sort of environment, whether it's family or the hotels. Have you seen the changes, the impact of everybody sort of eating more healthy foods and very much health conscious now in the restaurant and the chefs and then you see sort of steady improvements, at least of the impact that what you're doing is making.
And that is what what get me out of bed every morning and keeps me going to see. Not only in our hotels. All the creative chefs and people now really putting their attention and coming up with creative solutions. How can we serve better, more sustainable, healthier options? And this hotel, the general manager and his food and beverage team have been doing amazing work to really put the better choices into delicious wrapping and
can you now account for where the food comes from in the menu, whether it's locally produced?
Exactly. We had our event director. She was out visiting farms and worked with the chefs. They found better solutions, more sustainably sourced, healthier options, reduced added fat and sugar, and realized that it could taste just as good, almost better. So there are so many good things happening, so many creative, clever people all around the world coming up with now great solutions, and that is also the beauty of food. The power of the plate is enormous if you can actually enjoy part of the solution for health and sustainability.
Okay, and it's been great talking to you, Gunhild. It's very, very important. Food is, what we all, without food, us humans, we're not going to be here. But the key is to make sure that we eat the right food, the proper food that's good for us, good for the environment, good for the planet, and good for our future again.
We are what we eat, and so is the planet. So together we can do this. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Ya, demikian insight kali ini bersama Gunhild Stordalen dari EAT Foundation, founder dan presidennya. Dan semoga insight kali ini cukup memberikan inspirasi, karena pada akhirnya kita itu harus memastikan bahwa kita bukan saja memiliki makanan atau pangan yang murah, yang dapat diakses, tapi juga yang bergizi dan tentu saja tidak merusak lingkungan hidup kita. Ya, demikian insight kali ini. Terima kasih. Saya Desi Anwar. Sampai jumpa dan bye-bye.